Welcome everyone to Taiwan Demo Day. We're really excited to have this amazing panel lined up for you today. I know John had a chance to briefly talk about the luminaries on this panel, but I wanted to take a quick minute to briefly introduce each of them. I know that we have about 35 minutes, so rather than have them introduce themselves, I'm going to tell you a little bit about each of them, starting with Chris Manning. Chris Manning is the head of Stanford AI Lab. He's a professor of machine learning at Stanford, and he's also the associate director of the Stanford Human Center for AI. He's a pioneer in NLP. I think, if I read correctly, he's published more papers on NLP than anyone else. He's a celebrated educator and author. He was the creator of the very popular Stanford class, CS224, and he's co-authored several foundational NLP textbooks. He's built influential tools and standards, and he's a highly recognized expert. He's the fellow of 3 major associations, including the Association for Computing Machinery, the Advancement of AI, and Computational Linguistics. So he's won several awards, including the 2024 IEEE Award. So please put your hands together and welcome Chris Manning. Next, we have Dr. Jerry Kaplan, who's also another AI thought leader and educator. He's an adjunct lecturer at Stanford, also specializing in social and economic impacts of AI. A tech pioneer who's invented key technologies like tablet computers. He's had 2 companies go public. He's written several best-selling books, including Humans Need Not Apply, and most recently, Generative AI, What Everyone Needs to Know. He's a recognized expert, and frequently you can find him cited in the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, Forbes, Business Insider. He's your guy. And last but certainly not least, Michelle Jiang. We know Michelle because she's also a SkyDeck advisor. She has been a deep tech VC most recently, and the founding managing partner at MTM Ventures, a serial entrepreneur who's taken 3 companies, helped exit 3 companies, and also a tech exec at places such as TDK, Micron Tech, and also Neophotonics. And she's also a trusted advisor at major institutions like eTree. So let's get started. All right, thank you. This title, what is after AI? We internally discussed, we think the title is supposed to be what comes next for AI, okay? The current state of AI, it's been rapidly evolving. Everyone's head is spinning. Who has been paying attention to the news? Raise your hand if you've been paying attention to what's been coming out this week in the news, everything between the AI action plan and NVIDIA being able to sell chips to China. So much happening, things are constantly changing. So my question to the panel, the first question is, given the current state and the rapid evolution, what actually is happening? And I'm going to go to Jerry to start, to put you in the hot seat, Jerry. With regards to the current state of the AI market, you've mentioned to me that you think we're in the latest hype and that we should expect the bubble to burst spectacularly in the next couple years. That a lot of what's being said publicly is total nonsense. So I'd like to invite you to please elaborate and bring us along and help us understand how you came to that conclusion. Go ahead, Jerry.
Well, first of all, thank you for giving me my conclusion. Just a word of background. It doesn't seem inconsistent with the tone of the meeting, but I'm an old-time entrepreneur, Silicon Valley entrepreneur. I've been through numerous ups and downs and bubbles. This is probably my 4th. It's not my first AI bubble. I was in the middle of the first AI bubble. It's not the first time in terms of building out IT and bandwidth infrastructure. There's another bubble of that. And I can assure you that bubbles go in a very particular way, and we are in the middle of a very large bubble. And what that means is there's too much investment. And that investment is going to lose money. On average, the investment that's being made today is not going to pay back. So there will be a period in which the whole thing is going to deflate. However, that's different from talking about the value of the technology. This technology that's being developed today is extremely valuable and is going to have major impact on the way we live and we work, and even the way we conceive of our place in the universe and who we are. So I just, be careful. Do not expect this party to go on forever.
Yeah. Michelle or Chris, both of you, I only learned at the beginning of this afternoon that Chris is also at a VC firm. From the investor standpoint, how do you see things with the current state of AI? Do you concur? Any additional thoughts you'd like to chime in with?
There's definitely a lot of speculative investments, like way too much of that going into AI today, which I likened it to like in the late 90s, the dot-com and telecom bubble. Is a very similar, a lot of similarity between that and today. However, I do see there's some difference between back then and now. In that, which is somewhat positive for where AI where we are today. One is that the technology, the AI technology, is more mature than like the dot-com e-commerce technology, and also like the infrastructure back then was last developed. And then also this time it's a lot more like established companies are involved, such as the famed. The Magnificent Sevens are involved, and then so there's more investment or partnership with these companies being the opportunity as opposed to just VC or public market retail investor. So I think there's some positive to it, and then also there was like actual application of AI being developed today. So I think from that perspective, I'm still like generally positive about AI, and I do. Although I don't call myself an AI investor, but no, certainly in my portfolio, most of the company has an AI element to what they do. So basically, they apply AI to be like part of the solution or help their solution to be help their work to be more productive.
Yeah, Chris, do you want to add anything to this?
So there've been excellent answers already. I agree on all of that. But on the other hand, I think there are just enormous opportunities to reinvent all kinds of areas of industry using AI native solutions. And so there are going to be some new companies that are very successful doing that.
Yeah. Since we have a little bit of a bubble and there's a lot of investment going into the space, what would you say to the startup founders and the investors in the audience? How do they, for an engineer that's thinking about joining a startup, what are the tells in terms of whether that company might be part of the bubble, and like what should they be looking for in terms of, or which aspects of AI do you see the most promise?
So for me, I came with bias. My background is hardware, so personally, I do think that like on the hardware side, not just like AI chips, but just all things that need to support the AI like development, right? So that includes AI chips as well as like data center technology related to like how to make data center run more efficiently, cooling, more renewable energy, because in the energy, we're running out of power to power the AI development. So there's a lot of investment opportunity from my perspective, more the quote unquote infrastructure side. I think that it's immediately, there's opportunity to like either make money or have a successful company right away. It can be less speculative as opposed to like software application, etc.
Yeah. Go ahead, Jerry. You wanted to add something?
Sure. Just a couple of words of advice for this audience. The companies will be successful in inverse proportion to how many buzzwords they put into their pitch. What you need to focus on is what is really the value proposition. Imagine that there wasn't all this money floating around and there wasn't all this hype about it. Are you delivering value that can actually make a profit and have a genuine, create a real return for your investors? That's the thing you need to focus on. Another thing, because I've been in your chair many times when I was younger, raise the money now, put it in the bank, and don't spend it, because a time will come whether you succeed or not is more a function of whether you have raised more money than the other 5 companies doing the same thing than they have raised.
Yeah. Piggybacking on something that you said, Michelle, about your interest in the opportunity with AI infrastructure. Obviously, yesterday was kind of a big day. I feel like every time I open my New York Times app or other news apps, I'm always surprised by what's happening. So Trump announced, and that he was going to sign 3 executive orders, the AI action plan, which will remove the red tape and regulation and allow developers and companies to build faster without all the red tape. How do you perceive the news? How did you guys react to that? Would be curious to get a quick take. Michelle?
Well, I think as an investor, that's perhaps net positive, right? In the sense that essentially it is supportive of growth, essentially. Although I would say that it's not different from before, right? I mean, it's always, right? Any administration has always been supportive of that. But so I think it's good that he's removing some red tape, especially like the potential opportunity for a company to still sell chips to China or have some sort of relationship. I do think that it's smart, because I think the embargo or just the blocking access to chips has not worked out well. I mean, just in terms of has not been effective, right? So we've seen like previously Huawei, wasn't able to, the company in cell phone company couldn't get access to American processors, and they ended up like developing their own Android alternative, which so then there will be like their thing, right? So that's not good for the U.S. company either. So I think there's definitely a lot positive, but the only thing I'm a little concerned about, but now of course you don't know what's going to happen. Now just in terms of making it more easy to build energy like generation plants or data centers. So hopefully it's not like at the expense of being detrimental to the environment or local economies and things like that.
Yeah. So it sounds like generally net positive that the AI action plan was rolled out. Jerry, from an economic standpoint or a societal standpoint, do you have any thoughts about what this means for how will this impact the average American, if at all?
You mean this particular?
Yeah, the acceleration, the removal of regulatory barriers.
Read between the lines in my answer. I am not comfortable putting this on video.
Okay. All right, enough said. So this AI race, this war that's happening, what does winning the AI war mean, and what are the battlefronts? Anyone want to take a stab at that? Because this AI race is just going on between companies, between countries. Jerry.
Well, I think the important thing for this particular forum, in my opinion, the whole idea that this is some kind of geopolitical race is complete nonsense. This is a technology that will be widely distributed. It's already widely distributed. The people in the government here don't understand that if you go to China or Taiwan or Europe, there are people doing great work. They're just as advanced. And whether you have a chip that's 10% faster or not is not going to make a damn bit of difference. So this whole idea that somehow the United States can prevent the rest of the world from taking leadership is, I think, a dangerous myth. That's not to say that the U.S. should not invest and should not do the same kinds of things that these other countries are doing, but there is no global race. It's not a meaningful thing at all.
Chris, did you want to chime in?
I mean, I think there is a race in terms of which companies succeed in which markets. And, well, I can't not mention TSMC when I'm sitting in this audience, but, in other areas as well, right, that NVIDIA has such domination of the GPU market, and obviously there are lots of people now trying to develop competitive chips, but their lock-in is so strong with the sort of software and developer ecosystem, it's going to be very hard to change that. And I think people are imagining the same thing will also be happening at higher levels, like large language models, that you could easily imagine they're becoming dominant ecosystems. And so I think in that sense, a lot of the computing industry has tended to become very monopolistic, so there are effectively winners.
Yeah.
Can I amplify what Chris just said, because it's a really valuable and interesting point. Let's look at NVIDIA as an example. We all think, wow, they're making the chips and they're just putting them in boxes and sending them to people. But the reason that the company is dominant and the reason it's going to be successful is not the chips themselves, because they've invested so heavily in the surrounding infrastructure of software tools, of systems, of just frankly people who can go out and proselytize and communicate to the potential customers how they can make those chips useful and valuable in the systems that they're building. And that's the differentiator. The same thing happened when you had Intel and AMD and others working in their architectures. And we're seeing the same thing happen today with NVIDIA.
Yeah. With NVIDIA, the ability to sell chips to China, the idea that they're only selling H20 chips, is that really going to prevent China from catching up with us? Thoughts?
No. I think it's really interesting what's happening in China, that there's clearly been stunning developments where Chinese companies with less resources in terms of GPUs, etc., have been producing super strong models. So, I guess it was DeepSeek that really caused the DeepSeek moment at the beginning of 2025. But I think really the US fixation on DeepSeek was sort of misleading. I think the right attitude to have is that China has lots of exciting companies building large-ish foundation models, many of which are extremely good. So there are lots of other ones. So both huge companies like Alibaba with their Chen models, Kimi K2 came out just recently, and there's just lots of other ones of Step Fund, Jipu AI. I have trouble remembering all the names. That it's just, really there's a larger ecosystem of companies producing interesting foundation models in China than there is in the US, despite the fact that they've perhaps only got about 1/10 of the GPU resources of some of the American companies.
Yeah. Speaking of the...
If I just add one thing real quick, I agree with the other speakers, but I think that what it does prevent, or maybe not prevent, but slow down, is for them to develop their own NVIDIA, which I'm sure they are going to work on it, right? Just like they want to have their own TSMC, not the same T, but but because they have access, so there will be a lot of impotence for them to really focus on that.
Yeah. In this whole conversation about the AI race or war, whatever you want to call it, Chris, you mentioned that there's a lot of competition between all the different companies. So what is you see Meta and OpenAI offering the $100 million paydays to these engineers? What is really going to make the difference that will allow, say, an Anthropic to pull ahead of an OpenAI or all these different players? Besides talent, what are the other things that will really help decide the winner in 5 years' time or longer, however long it takes? Go ahead. Anyone want to speculate a guess?
Well, in the large language model, foundation model market, there's only going to be 2 or 3 surviving companies. So that's the first thing. And right now there are dozens of them getting billions and billions of dollars of investment. That's part of what happens in a bubble like this. But the answer to your question is, it's not a star employee that makes this worse, it's the execution. And the ones that can build the right kind of organization, that can communicate what their products can do, that can tailor those products to the actual needs of their customers, which is not going on adequately right now. That's what's going to determine who is the survivor and who is not.
Do you want to speculate a guess who the top 2 winners might be? Too early to tell?
Yeah, Yahoo and Netscape.
Good point. Jumping to the next question, which is, there's anytime you hear about AI, there's always talk about AGI and the threat to human existence. So I'm going to put you on the spot, Chris. As someone who's been deeply involved at SAIL and at the Stanford Human Center for AI, how do you reconcile the tension between building ever more powerful language models and ensuring that they're aligned with human-centered values?
So I think it's certainly an issue to think about, and there are lots of issues and concerns with large language models and other foundation models, especially if they're hooked up to live systems of tools where they can change the world. But I also think that a lot of the talk of AGI and ASI has really been in the realm of science fiction and just doesn't have much connection to the reality. So, I presume you're all familiar with some of the outlandish suggestions. So, Elon Musk says we'll have AGI either this year or on the outside next year. And I just think there's not the slightest possibility. I think there's been enormous confusion between the very genuine power of large language models, which come from the fact that they've been able to slurp up thousands of years of hard-won human knowledge and provide a kind of idiot savant who knows all the facts of the world, versus what is the actual intelligence of these models, which is still quite modest. So that doesn't mean there aren't dangers of large language models. There are all kinds of dangers. If you sort of hook those up to your electricity system and it starts going haywire, all sorts of bad things could happen. But I just don't think we have to be worrying about the LLM takeover in any time in the foreseeable future.
Yeah. Go ahead, Jerry.
Again, I'd like to amplify what Chris said. AGI is a mythology. It's really almost a religious concept here in the Silicon Valley. And nobody can define it. Nobody knows what it means. And what you're going to see happen probably in the next year or two, just as Chris said, is a couple of companies going to say, when it can pass this test that we've designed, then we're going to have AGI. And then it'll pass the test, and there'll be a big announcement, we've heard AGI. Well, the day after AGI is going to look just like the day before AGI. It's not going to mean anything. These things just sit there, and they're tools that people use. These are not nascent creatures with needs and wants and desires. They're not going to marry your children and drink all our fine wine and buy up all the beachfront property. They're just software tools. And whether they're used for good or whether they're used for bad, that's a matter of judgment. And it's really a function of who's using them and what they're trying to use them for. And it's not really so much a function of the tools. That's not to say we can't put some kinds of safeguards in. We don't want to be, selling guns to children, but this is not at all what it's cracked up to be.
Yeah. As a futurist who's written extensively on the trajectory of intelligent systems, Jerry, I wonder if you could tell us, if we were to imagine 100 years from now, what do you think the average human should expect to see that will be vastly different from the reality that we know today? And will it, what will be, which area will it be in? Will it be synthetic bio, the brain-computer interfaces, or will we be living in a post-scarcity economy 100 years from now? What do you think?
Well, I know I'm the futurist. You can see it right there on the slide. But here's the problem. I'm allergic to bullshit. And I have to take that and apply it to myself as well. I haven't got a damned idea what's going to be like in 100 years. And I can say whatever I want because the only thing I know for certain is I won't be around to see it. So, but the list, you sound like a very good list to me. I do think that synthetic biology is likely to be a big area. Maybe quantum computing. I don't know what it's going to mean, but it's a fundamental change. All of those are very real. I can say that in all likelihood, we're all going to be a lot wealthier. And, if history is a guide, life is going to be much better in 100 years than it is today, as hard as that is to believe.
All right, thank you. John is signaling to me that we've now entered the Q&A period. So I believe he's going to be running around with a microphone.
Good.
Questions for the panelists?
All right. Let me start with the first one. We have about maybe at least 3-4 questions. So.
Hi. I think for a lot of people, LLMs kind of caught people by surprise, and all of a sudden became useful for the average people. Considering that this is talking about what's next after, within AI, what would you say is the next kind of innovation or something that people should be looking out after once the LLM boom is over?
So I suspect that actually the next big change that we will see is in intelligent robotics. I mean, I think that's still a difficult area, so I don't actually think we'll see it next year or the year after. But in terms of something that can really cause a sea change in the same way that LLMs did, I think there's now dramatic advances in robotics hardware, but equally there's dramatic advances in providing the kind of machine learning-based software that will allow flexible, safe robotics interacting with human beings.
I would agree with that. So after LLM, there was agentic AI, right? So everything, people want an AI agent, but ultimately what you really want is to have, what people say the physical AI is to have physical objects that can kind of carry out that. So I I am definitely excited about robotic space, although as Chris mentioned, there's a lot of still hardware technology needs to be overcome, in addition to the software developments, and thus lies lots of opportunity for innovation still, really to make the robotics technology to be truly autonomous, number one, and then to be safe, can safely operate around human. That's another big topic, and then lastly, like to be intelligent enough and then cost effective enough so that it can be deployed so massively beyond currently logistic manufacturing space.
Again, I want to amplify what Chris has said. I think everybody here should know, when you talk about LLMs, you're talking about Chris. You're here in the presence of a legend, and I mean that very seriously. But just to give you an example to illustrate what he said, most people don't realize yet that self-driving cars are now a complete reality. The problem is solved. I just bought one. I've been testing it extensively. I've studied it. And this is going to change not just transportation, but the way we live and the way we work, our infrastructure. It's going to reduce healthcare costs. It's going to eliminate traffic accidents. It's going to have all kinds of amazing effects. And that's just one robotic application of artificial intelligence. But that's why I'm incredibly optimistic about the future. And I can't say that the people who are putting $100 billion into data centers are necessarily going to get any money back. But I can say that we're all going to benefit from this technology in many really remarkable and wonderful ways.
So we have time for 2 more questions. Look, some of these questions you have to pay a lot to fortune teller to find out. So take this opportunity to get them, okay? He's excited about this.
Thank you so much. My question to Jerry, futurist. So people talk about AI worry people's job, but actually very exciting. I'm not a coder, I'm just business professional. I'm embracing AI every inch of my work. I'm getting more effective, efficient, and very powerful. I want to ask you for future, are we killing the job? Actually, elevate people's job from a future risk perspective. Thank you so much.
Well, to give you a 2-sentence summary of a 10-week course that I'm teaching at Stanford, these systems are tools. And what happens when you have they're automation. And automation is the substitution of capital for labor. And what happens is when you make that substitution, you make people more productive and you change the nature of work. So it's true that a lot of people are going to lose their jobs, but that happened, I mean, I can point to all throughout history how this happened when new technologies came along. But here we are at full employment. And what does that mean? Well, the reason we're at full employment is that the labor market is very malleable and it's constantly changing. So new kinds of jobs are being created that will be more valuable and people will get paid to do those. So it changes the nature of work. That's the main effect of of technology. It doesn't eliminate work.
So probably have time for 1 more question. You gotta be really, really fast to get this one. Okay.
Wonderful panel. I'm Dr. Angela Jimenez, one of the mentors here at the Stanford AI program. And my question for you is, you have been talking a lot about competition. Is there any space for collaboration?
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah, especially, like, I think in the hardware space, again, I'm coming back to that. Because so I'm going to speak from the American U.S. perspective, right? There's a lot of innovations happening, like software, hardware, but in terms of like scaling up or deployment, whether it's manufacturing, partnerships and other nodes, I think definitely there's a lot of areas or the first test market. There's a lot of opportunity for U.S. company that's residing outside of U.S. So it's definitely like one thing that I always encourage, like my own portfolio company or company I advise or encounter, that they should seek out like the right partners wherever they are located around the world. So I definitely see there's a lot of opportunity.
All right, that was the last question, and I just wanted to welcome everyone, encourage everyone to put their hands together and give one big round of applause to the panelists. Thank you so much.